Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about 3 horror films that were based on true stories. First of all, I want to apologize for the little gap that you see in my closet. I cannot get it to shut. I'm sorry, hopefully nothing creepy pops up in that little gap. I don't think there will be anything. That's not like a tactic to tell you to look there, but that is really annoying me, so I'm sure it's annoying other people. And also I have my fan sitting right beside me because it is so hot in this room with the door shut, and I have to keep the door shut to keep my dog from coming in and my cat from coming in and knocking everything over because this is a really small room. So with all that being said, let's get started. The first film we're going to be talking about is the Amityville Horror movie. Now, this movie holds a special place in my heart because it actually was the movie that sparked my interest in horror, which is funny because as time has progressed and technology has gotten better, like special effects and stuff are so much better, and it's funny to watch this video back and see all the weird, crazy effects that they did. So the story behind this movie is that in 1974, a man named Ronald J. DeFeo Jr., otherwise known as Butch, actually killed his entire family, 6 family members, 4 of his siblings, and 2 were his parents. One of the craziest things about these murders is that there was no sign of struggle from any of the family members, and it's crazy because he killed his family with a rifle, which is a very loud gun, so it's very surprising that they didn't hear something happening and like stir awake or try to hide or anything like that. But they were all found like face down, and I don't really want to get into the creepy crawlies. I'll leave that for the true crime channels. But basically he killed his family, and a couple days later he went to the police telling them that his family was dead. At first he said that it was a mafia related killing. He said that members of the mafia came to his home and forced him to kill his family at gunpoint. Then his story changed a little bit later, which is where the horror element comes from that a lot of people talk about. He also said that he was hearing voices in his head telling him to kill his family, but during his trial they did a psych evaluation and they realized that no, he's just crazy. He didn't, hear voices. And so eventually he was, tried and found guilty of murdering his family. But the real horror story comes in the real story after Butch leaves and his family was killed. There was a family called the Lutzes who moved into the house, but they only stayed in the house 28 days because they were experiencing paranormal activity. I have a little report here that I'm going to read from, but they said that they experienced smelling strange odors. They saw an invisible force that was knocking knives down in the kitchen. They saw levitation between family members, cold spots in certain spaces, and just a ton of other things. I think they said they saw like a pig head in the window. Obviously, there was a lot of speculation that this was a lie. For one thing, about 5 years later, their lawyer, who was having issues with them because of money, and I guess they hadn't paid their bill to him, claimed that they came up with the story of the haunting. The crazy thing is that the Lutz parents took a lie detector test and they passed it, and it was showing that they were truthful with everything. But we know that lie detector tests aren't permissible or admissible, whatever the word is, in court as actual evidence, but usually it gives a good indication if someone's lying. And the reason that the lawyer also claimed that they were making up the story is because they were having money problems because they bought this house because it was like crazy reduced, but it was still above their budget. But they bought it because it was like such a great house for the cost, I guess, not knowing what happened in the house. And so when they moved because of the supposed paranormal activity, they had to, struggle a little bit financially because they couldn't afford to like just leave their house. The claim was that they wanted to sell their story, which obviously that happened, and they wanted to get some money off of it because they lost so much money with the house. But that is the backstory to Amityville Horror. Story number 2 out of 3 is the movie Veronica. This movie is originally in Spanish. I watched it on Netflix. I don't know if it's still on there, but it's originally in Spanish because it is about a young Latina girl who got mixed up in the occult and unfortunately lost her life. I was really excited to watch this at first because people were saying it was like so scary you couldn't get through the first 30 minutes or whatever, but I have a pretty high tolerance, I guess, for horror movies, and so when I went and watched it, I was really shocked that it wasn't super scary. This is actually based on a girl named Estefania who was doing a Ouija board to contact the soul of one of her friend's dead boyfriends who had died in a motorcycle accident. So when they were actually caught doing the Ouija board, because they were doing it on campus, on the campus of their school, They were caught by a teacher, and once they were caught, the people around her reported seeing like smoke coming from her nose and her mouth, which is kind of what started a spiral into a really bad half of a year for her before she ultimately died in 1990. So she was suffering from things like hallucinations and seizures. And her parents took her to a lot of different doctors to see what was wrong with her, but none of them could find anything wrong with her. But one day her parents just found her dead in her room. I have another report here that before her death, her family claimed they would experience slamming doors, whispering, and appliances turning on and off. And once they moved, that all stopped. So it's said that this movie, Veronica, is loosely based on this family's story because there are elements of it that are the same, but in the movie, all of the bad stuff happens in like 3 days, but for the family, it was a lot more drawn out than that. It was actually like 6 months that they were experiencing stuff with their daughter, and so it ended the same way. Estefania and Veronica both die in their stories, unfortunately, and that's all we really know. Okay, the last one I want to talk about is The Conjuring. So all of the Conjuring movies are based off of Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were paranormal investigators who have both passed since. Every movie that you see with Ed and Lorraine Warren supposedly actually happened, but I'm going to talk about the second Conjuring because I just watched that with my husband recently, and it's actually one of my favorite Conjuring movies out of all of them. The second one follows the Hogden family, which was a family from the UK, and they were actually experiencing issues in their home related to a man who died in their home, which apparently this is true. It was a family of I think 4 children and a single mom, and one of the daughters, Janet, was being possessed by a man named Bill Wilkinson, I think. Wilkinson, something like that. The thing I love about the Conjuring movies is at the end of them, there's usually actual footage or audio of the interviews that happened with people, and you can tell that Janet doesn't sound like a sweet little girl in the interviews. She sounds like a man, and it's like hard to believe that a little girl can manipulate her voice to sound that way. So apparently the Warrens were really involved in the movie. If you watch the movie, they're really involved in the investigation. Obviously someone else was investigating it first and they were called in, which is usually what happens with the Warrens, but in the movie they were like super involved and like saved the girl in the end and all that kind of stuff, but really they weren't as involved as they claimed to be. They actually just did an interview. They kind of came in for a consultation, and I think that Ed used it in one of their books later just to kind of use it for paranormal research, but really they weren't very involved in that case, and I'm not sure their depth of involvement in most cases. But I do know that the audio that they always play at the end is always really creepy, and it always gives me a bad vibe, so I'm sure that there's something to that. And we'll leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video of 3 horror movies that are based on real stories. If you like it, give it a like, share it with your friends, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel. I'm doing videos all October on Saturdays and Wednesdays, and I'm resharing videos from Sundays from last year. So if you're interested, please subscribe, tell your friends, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!